Hey, all right, let's do a side note. So this week I watched the interview with Cam Newton and Lady London. And so, in case you don't know who Cam Newton and Lady London are, Cam Newton is a former NFL player. He played for the Carolina Panthers. He is a Heisman Trophy winner and first round draft pick. He also has a podcast now called Funky Friday, and Lady London was a guest. Lady London is known for brains and beauty. She's a lyricist, a rapper, came on the scene, to my knowledge, came on the scene maybe about 5, 6 years ago. And she's a Howard alum and a USC alum. So I was watching the interview and yeah, I want to talk about it. And not because it was messy, but because yeah, I think conversations need to be had about sharing the air and the spaces we hold as Black men and women. And what it just revealed something very, very real about where Black culture is right now, especially when it comes to communication, when it comes to power, and how we show up in the spaces that we occupy. So, the conversation and the interview, what stood out to me, it wasn't about like the tension or maybe the awkwardness. It was misalignment. Yeah, it was misalignment because they were two intelligent people, two confident voices, in two different ways of holding the floor. And so the internet does what it always does. It was able to highlight, the clips and things like that. And my way of approaching this is just to pause, to ask why moments like this keep happening. So that's what I want to do here in this side note. Pause, slow it down, and look at the bigger picture. So this wasn't even just about Cam Newton as a man and Lady London as a woman. It was about how authority shows up and how it's actually received, right? So Lady London entered that conversation calm, thoughtful, grounded, not really performing intelligence, because she is intelligent. She wasn't fighting for dominance, and she wasn't trying to win or just, toot her own horn like that. She was just confident. And she was really engaging. She was simply engaging. So there was this part in the interview where Cam Newton, well, throughout, let me back up, because throughout the interview, it was just evident that he was not really tapping into what she was saying. It was like he just was hearing her, but then not listening. She had to compete to complete a thought and navigating the several interruptions. And so there was this part in where he actually was listening, where he asked her, "How do you see me?" Or what's her impression of him? And she said, "You're like an onion." And I'm paraphrasing. "You're like an onion. You have all these layers. And part of it is confidence. Part of it is pride. Part of it is ego. Part of it is bravado. And then there's this part of you that basically you use your like personality to hide maybe some of that softness that you don't want people to maybe have access to or to know that's there, whatever." Right. And for one of the very few times throughout the whole interview, he was quiet. And so what that let me know is that he does want to feel heard and seen also. And so maybe that's something he's working on, learning how to feel seen and heard and respected. I'm not sure. But if you've ever been in a room where you felt like you needed to compress your insight before it got redirected, go watch that podcast. Okay. Yeah, there was a lot of ego in there. And the room dynamics, right? She's on his podcast, and it was just one of those interactions where you're like, "Cam, what is going on?" And like, this is not like to bash Cam at all. It really, really, really isn't. It was just one of those things where you're like, all right, buddy. Yeah. So here's the part that some people might not want to name with it. We are very comfortable with assertiveness in men, especially from our, in our Black culture. We celebrate it, we reward it, and we actually expect it. Yeah. Yeah, we expect that. And for the women, we often feel uneasy when confidence shows up without the rah-rah, right? So Lady London didn't raise her voice. She didn't match Cam's energy, and she didn't compete for airtime. She stayed steady. And steadiness can feel threatening, and feel charged. Not because she was disrespectful, but because she didn't shift to accommodate the room. Yeah. She didn't shrink, she didn't harden, and she didn't perform. Um, she stayed centered, and it showed. And that's just something a lot of us, I'll throw myself in there. A lot of us, men and women, are still learning how to sit with. Yeah. So here's the thing, too, for us Black men, women, and men. We're often navigating the same spaces with very different conditioning, like I said. So, um, our men are just taught differently. But guys, for my guys that are listening, actually my ladies that are listening, you know how we do. And I'm not suggesting that you have any kind of passive aggressive behavior. But I'm saying, like sometimes we like to get a message, but go through them around the mulberry bush to get them the message. So this might be where you might want to casually have this side note playing. But I just want to say this to the men, that one thing that is so top tier sexy is when you listen. Oh my goodness. It's top tier. Oh my goodness. It is. And I'm like, obviously I can't speak for all women, but I'm pretty sure that most women that are within the sound of my voice are like, yeah, that's true. We do. We want somebody that's going to listen. And listen doesn't mean obey. Listen doesn't mean do what I say. It just means, are you paying attention? Are you really listening? Did you feel me when I said that? Yeah. And it doesn't mean that we always need you to fix it. But and especially in this context but I'm just saying, like, in general, like, the listening is sexy. And it shows leadership. It does. So, and as Black women, we're taught to be excellent, we're taught to be composed, and I think we just need to learn how to say the unspoken expectations out loud. Yeah. So when these two type of approaches meet, it's bound to have tension. But it just doesn't mean someone is wrong. Yeah, it just means that two survival strategies are connecting and colliding sometimes. So instead of seeing that collision as disrespect, we might need to just see it as data. We might need to just see it as information about how rooms can function better, information about how listening is just as powerful as leading. hmm And so the part that hit me is the realization that many of us have been trained to feel, FILL, the silence instead of just honor it. Mostly because it makes us feel uncomfortable. Yeah. And we need to just increase our capacity on not redirecting and learning to receive, and not just responding and learning to reflect. And nope, that's not a character flaw. It's really just conditioning. And so awareness is how we shift that culture. Because when someone doesn't rush their wisdom, doesn't over explain, and doesn't demand validation, it invites the room to slow down. And slowing down is uncomfortable for spaces built on momentum and go, 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 and that control. So, you know what else? Presence doesn't need permission. People who are grounded don't interrupt to be heard. They don't dominate every single second, and they don't rush conversations just to maintain positioning. So they trust what they're bringing will land, even if the room isn't ready yet. And Lady London, she modeled that, she bodied that. And that's where people either loved it or resisted it, and that's why that moment stuck. And that's why this moment is a side note. So this wasn't just about a podcast. And honestly, that podcast, it shows up in our workplace meetings, and like I said, our relationships, creative collaborations, and leadership roles and spaces. So how do we respond when someone else holds the floor? That's the question I want us to reflect on. And that question alone determines whether a room feels expansive or if we feel like we got to compete. So, we want to just move away from having our culture only be focused on clapbacks. Yeah. And like I said, Lady London did a great job of modeling how not to clap back and still be impactful. So, this isn't about canceling anyone and it's not about crowning anyone. It's about recognizing that how we communicate matters just as much as what we say. That old saying, "It's not what you say, but how you say it." And, that also goes to the listening side and being a listening ear. So, because confidence, it doesn't require control. Yeah. That's the real takeaway. And the more we learn how to hold these tensions, the better our conversations get. And that's what it's all about. It's really what it's all about, y'all. So if this make you think, good, goody goody gumdrop. And if it made you uncomfortable, that's cool. That's all right. Stay here. You're also good. And go watch the interview. Make sure the link is in there, so that you can go and check it out. But it was good. And then I want you to ask yourself, how do I show up in shared spaces? All right. Okay, y'all. That's today's side note. Stay here, stay curious, and stay in conversations that move us forward. All right. Okay. Bye, family.